everybody. Welcome back. Today I have with me Renée Jenais. Renée is a writer, blogger, warrior, poet, healer, shaman, program and project manager. She is a goddess, a mother, and a plethora of other roles. Wow, Renée, that's a lot.
It is, but I suspect we all have a number of roles that we have in this life if we just be with ourselves and look at it.
Well, hopefully Storyteller is incorporated in that as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love storytelling. The power of storytelling is amazing. The power of words is amazing.
I agree. When we first started talking about this project, we were talking about writing, and I know that you use your writing as a pivotal part of your personal growth process, and it's a surefire way to, I think what you said in your bio is a surefire way to connect with your soul. And you also use this in your work with others to help them connect with their truth as well.
It is. It is. I teach a number of classes using a practice that I refer to as writing wisdom. And it's a stream of consciousness writing practice where we're looking to get past the filter or the critic of our critical mind and really write what comes from within us. And the more we do that, and I've found this both personally and in the classes that I teach, the more we do that, the more our inner wisdom will give us. And I've had students in classes because we write and then we read our writing to be witnessed by it. And I've had students say, just get big eyes and go, where did that come from? Like, I didn't realize that I was upset by that, or I didn't realize that affected me in that way. And it's these ahas start to come, and then they start to build on one another as you do the practice. So it's a really powerful experience. I've certainly had that experience personally, but also watching my students in the same way.
I've been a part of your classes, a couple of them, and yeah, I mean, the things that have come out have been kind of interesting and not at all sometimes what I would expect. They give a picture and a story, especially the future writing, the writing ourselves into the future that I experienced with you, gives a kind of picture of your life story that you can move into. And so as I've been making steps in my life, I've seen that I'm moving into that picture. So it's very powerful. It's good stuff to take away.
I find it interesting when we do those future visioning, because so much, if you follow the principles of manifestation, and there's a lot out there about manifestation, you really need to look at something as though it's already happened. Well, if you can't see your future, that's very hard to do. Mm-hmm. So that writing into the future, that practice is really powerful to kind of lock in that, not so much lock it in, but at least get a sense of what the possibility of the future is. And then you begin to kind of unearth that, then you can hold on to it in a real way and draw it to you in as much as you're moving toward it. It's kind of a bi-directional thing that happens. That's really, really good. I had such a profound experience a couple of years ago. My then husband and I were traveling in the south of France, and we had the opportunity, we were celebrating a milestone anniversary and had an opportunity to stay at a chateau in the south of France with 6 other couples. And every night we gathered in the big dining room, the big grand dining room for dinner. In France, dinner takes hours. And it's not so much about the food as the experience. So the first night, myself, my then husband, and all of these couples gathered at this big, grand dining room table. And we started to get to know one another. And we were all virtual strangers. I think two of the couples were actually neighbors, so they knew each other. And I had been talking with this woman, and she said that, she wanted to kind of get to know people, and I really wanted to get to know people too. And like, maybe we can ask questions, and maybe each couple, because it was a week-long thing, each couple could ask one question at the beginning of dinner, and through the course of the evening, every person would answer the question. We introduced the idea, everyone got on board. Over the course of that week, and the kinds of questions, because we didn't ask superficial questions, they were profound, deeply probing questions. Because of that, and because no one shied away from going there. By the end of the week, we were all just amazed at what the experience had become for us. And that experience has really informed the work that I'm doing and where I'm hoping to take the work, in that it's not just about the writing, it's about the reading and being witnessed. And I have a new series coming up where we're going to be launching a 12-week class in freeing the goddess for women. Part of that class is writing, but part of it is that deep questioning and getting vulnerable and being witnessed. And that's all about being willing to tell our own stories. In this particular class, we're going to be freeing the goddess, but the goddess exists in all of us, just as the God does. So when I say those terms, I'm speaking from that internal knowing of the duality within each of us. So I'm not talking about whether someone presents outside as a woman or identifies as a woman. It doesn't even play into it. We're going to free the goddess within anyone. I have certainly experienced that within myself, a great imbalance between my feminine and my masculine principles. And I have been working very hard at bringing those back into balance and freeing that feminine goddess energy within me. That's what the class is about.
In reviving the story of the goddess, how does wisdom writing practice fit into it?
In order to free your goddess, you have to remember she's in there. And we're using the wisdom writing practice to really unearth and go internal and begin to reconnect with both facets of ourselves, and really begin to look at the ways that, as an example, the ways that we live and don't show self-respect. Through the writing practice, let's unearth what we're doing to not be in balance with ourselves in a loving and respectful way. I curate each class to go after what might be there, to kind of peel back the onion and provide you doorways to peel back that onion in your writing. So I will research and find prose or poetry, and even sometimes if I can't find really what I'm trying to unearth, I will write my own. I can channel write just by really connecting with the angels, or if there's a deity that's appropriate for what we're trying to go after, really looking for how can I help people get to these answers. And really what we're just trying to do is open a doorway. And then it's up to the person. I always say in my classes that it's important as I'm reading and creating this energy for you to explore into, close your eyes, listen, and feel the energy of the reading. And then I will offer prompts, but I always challenge people as you're listening, if there is a phrase that just pops for you or pulls you um, in some way, that's really, um, you know, your permission to open that door on that phrase for you. Then we write for 10, 12 minutes, and the writing is pen to paper, never leaving the page. And you write as fast as you can because you want to write past the critical mind. So if the mind pops in and says, no, not that word, this other word, you ignore that. You write whatever word came. No matter what it is, you write it and you trust that those words, whatever's coming, you flow onto the page. And that really creates that flow. And once you kind of get that flow going, it's amazing what can pour out and really what becomes available to you.
I wonder if you've ever tried, using music or art in that, like visual art in that way to prompt story.
I have prompted story off of music, instrumental music, even music, lyrical music. I have not used visual art as yet, but I am totally open to it. I am actually exploring a goddess book right now. The author channeled art. She's also a painter and painted the goddess that she was channeling, and then she channeled a lesson from that goddess. And I find those pictures extremely moving and am trying that kind of using that to do writing to, as a matter of fact, right now. So I haven't done it in my classes yet because I'm trying it on my own first.
How did you come by this practice of wisdom writing?
I learned this practice from a lovely woman and dear friend of mine, Lori Wagner, who she um, teaches it as wild writing. She teaches others how to teach it, and I, um, you know, I this whole practice shocked me. I thought I was going along, tootling through my life, working on my spiritual growth and development, just evolving and then I went and checked out her website and saw that she was offering a class for women, specifically identified women, um, around empowerment issues. Uh, More like what we might call feminist topics, and was going to write on all of the rights would be around those things. And I was there all weekend with a dozen women, and suddenly I felt like I was entirely out of touch with the power of the feminine. Like, these were amazing, powerful women. There were authors in that weekend and folks from the publishing community and folks from corporate, but making big life changes and really wanting to help people. And it was just a profound experience. And I had my first taste of wild writing in that weekend. And from there, I signed up for this 27 days of wild writing that she sent you a video each day and a prompt. And I started every day writing. And it was the start of that process of peeling back my own onion. And my life has changed in dramatic ways. Unearthing all of that uh, inner wisdom for myself changed my life and changed the direction of it.
There's also Natalie Goldberg out there who teaches writers to use kind of that stream of consciousness and prompts to open up what they want to write about. What I find interesting is that this kind of stream of consciousness, so it can help us tell a story and write a book. It's also essentially the practice of psychotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
And the storytelling stream of consciousness, accessing the archetypes, is also, I mean, for me, and I think for the shamanic tradition as well, the ancestors and the archetypes, I think, is yet a whole other layer of the onion that can come out from this type of writing. And I think that, if I'm not mistaken, where you work is in not so much the Natalie Goldberg realm of we're going to write a story and get it published, but more in the psychotherapeutic and spiritual therapeutic realm. So, can you talk a little bit about what happens after the story is written and how that helps a person evolve psychologically and spiritually?
I would never want to brand it as therapy because obviously I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, I'm not trained in that way. But I do think we as humans can support one another in many ways. There's a lot of power in the reading, having our words heard, being witnessed by those in circle. I felt it myself when I first started this practice. A part of me came alive again when I was witnessed in circle by others, and I've seen it in my students as well. It's a profound part of the process. I would like to grow this work into working with couples, using this work to balance the masculine and feminine in relationship. So there's the duality within, and then there's duality within our partners if we have them, and then there becomes this kind of third entity that gets created in relationship where there's also duality, and how do we make sure that we're staying in balance? I have a deep calling for, um, you know, creating space to allow great love to occur between people. My students end up continuing to use it as their own therapeutic, way of kind of looking at their lives and continuing it as a growth practice.
So, I'll share my experience with um, the most profound was the future visioning for me. I did, I think, two of your courses before that, but the future visioning was really profound. There was one part where I don't know whether you guided us to look at our future partner or that's where I went. I think that's where I went, was to look at my future partner. And Idris Elba was there. What it told me as an individual, what I was telling myself through the writing, was that I wanted somebody who I felt was a real challenge um, to make me step up my game so that I wouldn't be complacent, that somebody who was at the top of the success ladder of his um, milieu. So, he's the sexiest man alive, he's a famous actor. And I always take from him this sense that he knows who he is and doesn't have any problem holding space in the world. And so, if I'm to meet and be in relationship with someone like that, then I need to know who I am. and have no problem holding space in the world, and to define myself and my success and achieve success on my own terms, which I see. Whether this is who Idris Elba really is, this is my image of Idris Elba. This was my image of the ideal partner. So that's how I took it, and I've been working with it. Is I need to develop into the person who will be a good partner to the partner that I want.
It's perfect that you looked at it and went, wow, if I really want to be with someone like that, I need to be someone like that to kind of magnetize that to me. That's perfect. I typically in those the future writing, I will use a meditation as I did in that one that you were in, and I leave it wide open because you know it, your vision is not someone else's vision. Relationship may not be important in someone's future because maybe they have one. It's lovely. Um, they don't see that changing in any way, so their future visioning is going in a different direction. So I try to make sure that I'm leaving the door wide enough where whatever comes is allowed to come in. So yeah.
Now, that being said, if Idris Elba is watching, I am available to date.
Awesome. Although I think I have bad news for you. Oh well.
Married men, they're off the books, so forget it. It was a really powerful class, and that to me shows how people can take it and continue to work with what's come out of the class.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. One thing that came to mind that you, in that vision that you had, is that you also had the courage to say, as a woman, you wanted like a man who was strong, a man who had a sense of confidence. And I think sometimes, because again, going back to the imbalance between the masculine and the feminine, that we haven't felt as women that it's been okay to speak that, to kind of, feed that energy, because sometimes that masculine can kind of run us down. I find it courageous to own the fact that um, that there is a part of us of that feminine that wants that masculine to step right up with her.
Somebody said to me yesterday that when they first met me about 4 years ago, I was so driven. And I thought, well, 4 years ago, I was on vacation compared to how driven I had been. And
Mhm,
so I was very, very focused and in the masculine energy. And
mhm,
so I wasn't able to allow that to be in somebody else.
mhm,
And I wasn't able to allow myself to be in the feminine energy. And I got out of balance in towards the masculine. So now I'm trying to come back into balance with more of the feminine at this point in my life. So yeah, I could see what you're saying of being courageous. And I think that as women, we do get a message that we have to be, as a woman, I'll
mhm.
own it myself. I've had the message that I have to be equal to a man, which almost gets translated to I need to be a man.
Exactly. I have also received that message. It's an unfortunate one.
Yeah, and I hope that that can change for future generations.
Yeah.
That, hopefully part of the work that you're doing will do that. In my experience of your classes, there's a definitive lack of male identified participants. What do you make of that?
It is an ongoing struggle and one that I, I really want to change, particularly as I think about wanting to take this work into relationship. And so, of late, what I've been trying to do is speak to my friends who are men and identify as men, and you know, why wouldn't you, you know, want to explore this work? And in a lot of ways, the at least the conversations I've had so far is that they're in the business of doing. So I'm continuing to try and look at ways of creating an opportunity for men to experience this work, where they really feel like um, it's there's a pathway to it for them.
I think it was Jung that said we spend the first half of our life creating an ego and the second half of our life letting it go. There may be something about letting go of the need to be doing and instead being able to be being that happens naturally through life. And so, maybe if you look for older men, male identified individuals who are older, they may be in the phase of life where they're able to let go of all of that ego. The other place that I'm wondering is, the whole, as we've been careful to say, male identified, female identified, it's that kind of non-binary world of, sexuality and gender identity that you might find some currently male identified individuals wishing to explore that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's the people that it's not open to, that that I need. I have a desire to try and figure that one out. It's been interesting. COVID has certainly done this at a macro level to society. The immediate slowing down. I mean, prior to March, every single week, I got on an airplane every Monday morning, flew to a different state, worked all week, flew back home. There was all of this doing, rental cars and hotels and packing and unpacking and blah, blah, blah. And all of that stuff that I thought was so much a part of who I was and what I had to do came to a grinding halt overnight. It just stopped. It was jarring to realize how unimportant that all of that stuff actually ever was. It didn't affect how I could actually do my work in the world. It didn't impact that at all. Now I realize that's not true for a lot of people, that it totally impacted their ability to work. But I'm talking about just the sheer amount of doing that stopped for all of us.
In a way, I mean, maybe on a global scale, we're rewriting our story.
I think we are.
In what ways, aside from the writing practice and your coaching work, do you find story is a part of your life and storytelling?
In my plethora of roles and careers and businesses, I do corporate program and project management. And you might not think that story would show up there, perhaps, but it does all the time. When I start with a new client, one of the things that we do is use story to really align a team on where we're headed. I have always found that the most successful teams are the ones who really have a solid vision of where we're going. What is it that future place looks like? How does all of that look in that future world? And we can use story to kind of build that vision and get that solid with everyone so they understand where we're going. You want to know where you're going to figure out how to get there. Project and program management is always you're trying to get from where you are to where you need to be. So we use story to do that.
And what about as your role as a mother? Is there a role for storytelling there?
Always, always. I have always said and apologized to my children that I'm not sure I was ever really equipped to be a good mother. I certainly didn't feel equipped. Uh, my mother was very childlike, so I didn't really feel like I had a great example. And I think she would be the first one to tell me I didn't. But story was something I've always had. Like I could figure out what something looked like in story that I would have liked to have had happen, or I would like my children to understand, and then I could convey it as an example through storytelling. So I feel like parenting, um, eh, storytelling is your number one tool.
I would just reflect back to you that when we met, we were in a shamanic retreat. And I
Mhm,
remember one of the things we learned there was that ancestors give us a wounding,
mhm.
but in that wounding, there's also a gift.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned that because um, when we had talked about preparing for this and you wanted me to bring a piece of writing, the poem that I selected was is actually entitled "Wise Words from Grandma Erna," and it's some of those very um, lessons that she taught me along the way.
It seems like a natural time for you to share with us that poem.
Oh, okay. I need glasses to read. Wise words from Grandma Erna. Never rely on a man, she said. Make your own way, she said. Use your own voice, she said. Learn. Be responsible for the information that goes into your head, she said. You don't need anyone, she said. You can do anything that you put your mind to, she said. Just apply yourself and believe in yourself, she said. If they knock you down, get back up and avoid that knock next time, she said. Remember your lessons. Don't get knocked down without learning something, she said. Ask smart questions, she said. Be curious, she said. Believe in yourself. If you don't, no one else will either, she said. Believe in yourself. So I did.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
The last question I have for you, and you could probably anticipate it, is for what are you most grateful in the power of the word?
Mm. I am most grateful for the vulnerability of the words of the people who show up in my classes and open themselves up and say the things that hurt, the things that trouble them, the things that keep them up at night. Um, the the courage and the bravery of that vulnerability takes my breath away. And I am forever changed by it and grateful for it.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Renee. So we're going to wrap here today with our conversation with Renée Jenais. Thank you so much, Renee, for joining us today.
Thank you, Tanya.
And now we want to turn it over to you. What role does storytelling play in your life? It would be great if you would respond in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more in this series, then click subscribe. And if you hit the bell icon, you'll be notified as soon as I upload again. For what are you most grateful today?